The drama, incredible. I don't know if you could write a story that went the way we saw today. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers clipped the Montreal Alouettes with no time on the clock, double field goal attempt, walk-off win, 28-27. The Bombers finished the season 11-7. They will host the West Final. We'll see who that will be, as the Lions will travel to Saskatchewan to face the Rough Riders next Saturday. Tons to get to on the show. We got video highlights. We'll look through the stats, your comments in the live chat. Great to see everybody, as always. Pumped for this show because we got a special guest, Brian Vesnaver from PFF. That's Pro Football Focus, joining us here on Game Day After Dark on Bonfire Sports. Bryson, Schnitzy, how are you guys?
Yeah. Go ahead,
Doing
Bryson.
well.
You're a
Doing
special
well.
guest.
No, doing well. Had a lot of fun watching that game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like. Did you guys believe your eyes? Could you believe your eyes when we see Sergio Castillo miss? And I was ready to tweet, okay, the Bombers are going to host the BC Lions next week, and Saskatchewan will see who they get. But this is the CFL, the crazy football league. You can't sleep on any moment in this game. Outstanding.
As you can see, folks, I'm wearing two chains. I don't usually wear two chains, Bryson. If the Bombers win, I wear one of my chains. But I got the second one from the 1930 crew, the bus tour we did to Regina for Labor Day. And I have to say I'm completely gobsmacked. I have never, ever in all my years of watching football, and I've watched a lot of football. I'm 41. I've watched since I was 5 years old. I have never seen an ending like that. That has got to be the craziest, and we're talking about the crazy football league. So this is saying a lot, right? We know what the C stands for. It's Canadian and it's crazy. I have never seen an ending like that. Like, it's one thing if there's but for the swirling winds and the leaves start to blow and it starts to rain just as Joseph Zima, the Montreal punters, about to punt it away and essentially leave Winnipeg with no time on the clock. The game's basically over. This crazy wind comes out of nowhere and he kind of shanks it. It goes out of bounds at like the 45 or whatever it was. Like, you can't make this stuff up. You can't write a better ending. And for the first place to hinge on something like that, like an act of God, and as Dwayne Ford said, God is a Bomber fan tonight. I just I've never seen anything like it.
Bryson,
I mean, like I think,
go ahead,
like you guys said, right? When he missed a 61-yarder, I thought that was it, right? I thought that was I was like, well, I don't know if I like that decision. I don't think they like in the cold weather to kick that field goal, but then, like you said, crazy football league, you never know, right? Getting the ball back right there, and then like you said, like I've seen wind like that happen, but never when like they're snapping the football all of a sudden, like they don't have a timeout, they can't stop it. They could maybe take it, delay a game, but they're so deep in their own end, like you just got to kick it. He shanks it, and then Winnipeg is already in field goal range. Like that was to win the division. That's one of the craziest things I've seen in a long time.
We've got so much to get to on the show today. And we'll mention once again, Bryson Vesnaver from Pro Football Focus joins us here on the postgame show. We won't keep you too long, Bryson, because there's, we want to let you get back to your weekend, but great to be with you and to have you with us. Maybe explain to people a little bit about yourself. Obviously, you're writing for PFF. That's Pro Football Focus, where they can find your work, and maybe talk a little bit about the grading system that you've kind of brought to the forefront for CFL fans over the last couple of years.
Sure, yeah. So I'm a Canadian, so born and raised here in Kingston, Ontario. Been a CFL fan, a football fan all my life. Played it growing up, obviously. Went to school at Carleton. Came back here, and I've been working for PFF for 10 years now. Obviously, we started in the NFL and expanded to college football in the States, and then finally a couple years ago to Canada for the CFL. So that was really exciting for me as one of the few Canadians in the company to do the Canadian Football League. So it's been fun. I mean, it's been a challenge to sort of integrate our grading system into the CFL because it was designed for American football. The game is so different, right? Like there's so many different things in Canadian football to make adjustments for. So it's been it's still a work in progress for us. I think like we just kind of took that the American system and put it into the Canada. We're kind of reworking it as we go when we see things that come up. But kind of like for those who don't really know, what we do grading wise is we look at a play, we watch every player on it and sort of see what they're doing. And we have a big guide that we've all studied and we've trained on that's been developed by players, coaches, etc., other analysts to grade players. So, for example, the easiest one I can say, right, is a quarterback drops back to pass. He throws a screen pass that goes for 60 yards because the receiver breaks 2 tackles, scores a touchdown. Counts the 60-yard touchdown for the quarterback, but he didn't really do anything. He just threw a screen pass versus a 60-yard in-stride bomb for the touchdown. On the stats are the same thing, but for us, we want to sort of contextualize that. So the screen pass would get a 0 because it's just an expected play, whereas the 60-yard in-stride bomb would get like a +1 grade because it was a really good play by the quarterback. And then after we've done all that for every player, we set it to a system. It goes through some normalization, and we get the 0 to 100 grades that I'll tweet out and that we use for the NFL. And I'm hoping that we can get on the website for the CFL soon. But that's kind of the gist of what we do.
Yeah, well, it's been awesome to follow. Schnitzy, I know you're a huge fan. Like, maybe share a little bit about what you enjoy about it.
Well, I just think like just what you said, Bryson, looking at let's say a screen pass that goes 60 yards versus a bomb that hits the outside receiver in stride on a go route, the degree of difficulty is so different, right? And you said the word contextual, and I think that captures exactly why I love football and why I continually learn about it, is because it is all about the context. There's 12 guys playing. It's the play call. It's what's the defense doing. It's when in the game it happens. And I think, that's why I love looking at the honor roll each week that CFL puts out and 3 Down puts out, which is based on your scores. Some things don't surprise me. Like, it doesn't surprise me to see Tyrell Ford up there. But other things sometimes do surprise me. For example, I think Sergio Castillo is the best kicker in the CFL. Well, according to your stats, he's not necessarily the best kicker, and it's because of the context. It's because of the situations he's kicking in and all of those things. So I think it's really fun for fans to have access to these numbers, because it does give great context to what's happening on the field. And I know the stats aren't be all and end all, but because it takes into account the context, you really get a more complete picture of what's going on in the crazy football league. So I quite like it. And honestly, sometimes you annoy me, not you personally, but the stats annoy me, because I'm such a homer that I'm thinking like, oh, okay, Sam linebacker, Retta Cramdy has been unbelievable this year. He's has to do so much. Like he pops Tim White on the 2-yard line and, makes Tim White drop basically a touchdown. Cramdy's amazing. Well, Cramdy's not even in the top 5 in Sam linebackers. Not saying Cramdy's not good. I mean, there's more to it than that, but he's not necessarily in the top 5. So I'm like, dang it, Bryson, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, I think, and I like to say this too. I know people sometimes don't agree with it, but the grades aren't the be all end all. I'm not sitting there saying that these are perfect and that you should just follow these for everything, right? Because there are things that guys are asked to do differently, that grade differently. And like for that example, right, some guys just get asked to do so much that they just can't possibly be good at everything, and so they're going to struggle at times, and their grades aren't going to be super high. But the team is like, well, we don't care because he's on the field every single snap, he's playing every single position on the defensive front, he's doing everything, and he does a good enough job at all that we're happy, and he's a good player. So like, I'm not going to sit here and say that, well, no, he's not, because our grades say he's not. I think they are a cool context for us to look at how players are playing, and beyond just like the basic box score that you're going to see on like CFL.com.
I have always appreciated, Bryson, how when you share these numbers, you say, this just paints a picture. It's not the be all end all. And you always have that context. I think that's so important. If you're talking about fancy stats in football or in hockey, advanced analytics, whatever it is, there's the eyes, there's the context, the situation, and the impact that one play can make versus another. And then the numbers that are just raw data and You take the emotion, you take the human brain essentially out of it, and it tells a real different story. If we just looked at today's game, this Bombers win, a huge one, that I want to get to, because everybody's champing at the bit to talk about this emotional win for the Blue Bombers. If you just looked at the numbers of this game, you'd be like, well, they didn't do too much, but they did enough at the right time to win the football game. And it just, I'll add this. Mike O'Shea has instilled this confidence and this, like, it's almost like stoicism. Like, no matter what is happening, they stay so focused on themselves and the importance of it. The importance of keeping that focus, where you can never count it out. The game is never over until it's actually over.
Absolutely. It's absolutely nuts. Bryson, I want to get into, Brady Oliveira and the whole MOP conversation, because I think that I don't want to speak for Darrin, but Darrin's a voter for the CFL awards, one of 4 in Winnipeg. And I imagine that voters are using some of these PFF stats. I've talked to Derek Taylor when we saw him in Regina. He's interested in them. Again, not the be all and end all, but they do really inform. When you look at, you said before we started, Brady Oliveira for me is the MOP. What goes into that for you, Bryson?
There's a lot of things. I like to look at sort of everything. I think the grades are important, but also like what they're asked to do. Like, for example, like someone like, I'm just going to go off another MOP candidate for this, but like Bo Levi Mitchell isn't the highest graded quarterback, but I would have him ranked number 1 for the MOP out of quarterbacks, because I think he's been the best quarterback, even though the grades don't always match that, because sometimes our grades sort of value more safe passes and he takes a lot of risks, but they pay off a lot. It's kind of why Claros also did a lot this year. He struggled a bit, but in the past he was always that like high risk, high reward guy. So like Brady, I mean, he's grading super well. His stats are all good. Like tackling him is with one guy is almost impossible, right? He's always going to gain yards. I know we have one stat that like tracks like how often they're tackled for like no gain or a loss, and he's like 5% or something crazy low, because he never gets tackled for a loss. He's always moving his feet forward. And I think, like, for me, the big thing too is that Bombers offense was pretty bad to start the year, right? Like, Colorado's and that passing up with all the injuries to the receivers, like they weren't very good. And Oliveira and that defense kept them in it, but Oliveira was the reason that offense was able to get points early on, especially, and get them back from that terrible 2-6 start to get to where they are now, first place. So that's why I think for me, like, he's probably my MOP out of the West, just based on what he's done for that team all season.
Right. No, and I think that context is so cool, right? Like, just going to riff off the 2 players you named, like Brady Oliveira. Maybe all things being equal, there might be a running back with similar stats, but it's what Brady Oliveira has had to do on an inconsistent defense, right? That really is dependent upon the run. They weren't tonight, but they have been in the past. But you look at like Bo Levi Mitchell, and I remember seeing a stat that you put out. I don't know if you put out or it was just referenced the PFF stat that Tim White leads the league in, or no, it's Hollins that leads the league in drop passes, but Tim White has a lot of drop passes. And like, is that on Bo Levi Mitchell? No. Like, what if he catches half of those? Like, Bo is even more of an attractive MOP candidate. But again, it's the context, right? It's how many makeable passes have been dropped by his receivers.
Yep, exactly right. And I think it's also part of it is like, well, he has, like you said, not a lot of help, right? If he's having to do it all himself, the run game wasn't very good all year, Hamilton. So it's been a lot of Bo Levi. Like, they're trailing in games, but he kept them in a lot of games, brought them back in some. So it is just like it all factors in, right? You can't, like, I always hate when people are like, well, no, like this stat says that he's this, so that's where I want to rank him. And it's like, no, like, use everything. You got to use all the things, because it's football. It's such a complex sport that you can't just use one thing to rank guys or to do anything like that. You have to look at every sort of everything and use a big picture, use every piece as context.
Mm-hmm. I had a question about the scoring. So, like, for instance, you put out a tweet that I retweeted that I think everyone should look at, like the top 5 graded players at each position, which I think is great. And so, for instance, Brady Oliveira has an overall grade of 87, and he's the highest rated running back. What is that like? How do you get to that number 87, and what exactly does 87 mean?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know exactly how the number comes out. We have a big system with our super advanced team and our data team that
Okay.
has once the grades are done, it goes into like a normalization, and and they spit out the 0 to 100 grade. I don't know the exact formula for it, but I know it takes into account like snap count, their roles at every play, how they do on each play, like how many positive grades they have, how many negative grades they have, and then it compares it to other like in the position across the league, right? So like the average guy. So like the thing is like we do that so you can compare across positions kind of, and it's better for the NFL because of it's designed for the NFL. So I always say with the CFL, I like to just compare within the position. I don't want to say like, well, like the quarterbacks in the CFL are going to grade super high because our system is they have to do a lot. Um, but that doesn't mean that they're all better than the best running back or something like that, right? They're better than each other, but anyway, so I don't like exactly know the system. It's not my department making those grades, but I know that like the average grade is like a 65 is our like your expected player. So if he's above a 65, he's better than the average like your expected replacement level player. And then anything above that is good. And so if you're in like the high 80s, 90s, you're like an elite player based on our grades.
Hey, want to definitely get your perspective on the CFL awards and all of that. I would love to get your perspective on the kind of the voting process. I feel it's a little bit flawed, and as a Football Reporters of Canada executive member, I'm going to work towards trying to remedy some of that stuff. But let's talk about this game, because it's one of the most dramatic finishes you could imagine, not just for the Blue Bombers, but in Canadian football. Schnitzy, let's start with you. Just your perspective on how you saw Winnipeg play today. And, if I don't know, as a fan, your confidence in this team going into another bye week where they get to rest, but they're just going to play their second game in a span of a month when they do host that West final.
Well, I mean, on the one hand, Darrin, this crazy wind and that ending, the fact that the Bombers win a game that they maybe shouldn't have won, it shouldn't gloss over the fact that this was a sloppy game by the Bombers in a lot of ways. The offense came out sluggish again. They couldn't establish a run against a middling run defense in Montreal. Now, Montreal was stacking the box quite a bit, but still, they couldn't establish the run. They had a couple offside penalties. Ontario Wilson has the OPI, the offensive pass interference. Then they have a really costly holding penalty or a legal block on a return that backed them up to their 3-yard line. Like there was costly mistakes by this Bombers team. Again, you had Castillo missing 49-yarder in the first half. Now, again, that was against a swirling wind. And then I thought the defense really struggled for a lot of this game. Montreal loves to throw the short stuff. They love to throw a lot of screens and hitches and things like that. And the Bombers seemed to struggle with it. And I thought in the first half, Montreal had an amazing, unfortunately, I don't see those stats, but they had looked like they were getting 6, 7, 8 yards on first down. And I thought they picked on Terrell Bonds a little bit, and I thought the defense struggled with some stuff. Now, Walter Fletcher is incredible in space. Bryson, you probably have an opinion on that in terms of yak yards that he gets, but I thought the Bombers were sloppy. And at the same time, a wind glosses over all those wrinkles in some ways, because Castillo somehow in a swirling wind, like he had the same swirling wind that 𝘎𝙤𝙧𝙚 did. Now, it was at his back a little bit, but it was pouring rain. And that was an MOP type kick to win a game when in the CFL, 67% of the teams that host a division final make it to the Grey Cup. It is such a massive advantage. And then I think it's times 10 with our crowd and the crowd noise. I remember a few years ago in the West Final in 2022 when Nathan Rourke was trying to lead a comeback, and it was 28-20. They had about 2 minutes left, and they completely flubbed the first 2 plays of that drive because they couldn't hear anything. And that's what this kick means. That's what the swirling wind means. Winnipeg now has the advantage of hosting this West Final with a crazy full-throated crowd behind it, the loudest fans in the CFL, and it all hinges on this crazy wind. And I think that sort of glosses over some of the flaws from this game. And when it came down to it, the Bombers somehow did enough to win. So I'm kind of like I'll use the word gobsmacked again, because, and the last thing I'll say is, I thought coming into this game, the offensive line had been much maligned for giving up 7 sacks. Now, Bryson, again, you can weigh in on that because it's not always the offensive line. It can be routes, it can be timing, it can be the quarterback holding the ball for too long, whatever it is, missing a block, a running back missing a block. But they'd given up 7 sacks. That was the difference in the Toronto game that should have clinched first place in the West Division. Tonight, I believe they gave up 1 sack. Collaros was hurried a little bit, but I thought the O-line came to play, and I thought they gave Zach time, and he threw for 331 yards, and I don't know, what was it, 75%, 1 touchdown, no picks. So I think it's nuanced. The Bombers were a bit sloppy, but they did enough to win, and they thankfully had some divine intervention.
Bryson, as somebody who watches the league, really from coast to coast, and gets into details of many players on many teams, do you see Winnipeg as the favorite going into the postseason? Like that conversation was happening when they had won 8 straight games prior to that loss 2 weeks ago to the Toronto Argonauts.
I do. I think. I think Montreal's still good, and I think them beating in the finals would be a great game. But I do think A, there's enough flaws with the other West teams, and B, Winnipeg is a good team. I think tonight, obviously, like you said, they played a little sloppy, but they were always within striking distance. They never got down so much they couldn't come back. Right? They were always kind of in it. So every time they struggled, they were still able to make the plays to sort of keep themselves in the game until the end. And they got a little lucky with that wind, but they were only able to do that because they were down by 2. So I think their offensive line's played better. The running game is still good. Collaros is looking a lot better the last couple of weeks than he had at the start of the season, so that's encouraging. I think the one thing that I worry is that their pass rush I don't think they got a pressure all night tonight. They weren't really trying. They weren't blitzing. They were just rushing 3 or 4, but they got nothing on Montreal. And I think if they try that against BC, they play them. When Vernon Adams is played, that's going to be tough, right? You got to get pressure on them. I don't know if that was a choice tonight to just let Montreal sort of pass it and try to stop the run, but I think they need. That's the weakness right now is their pass rush. If they don't fix that, that might be what does them in.
A lot of people in the live chat agree with you, Bryson. Bryson Vesnaver of Pro Football Focus, PFF.com, joining us here on GameDay After Dark, and the Bombers capturing a win, 28-27, to punch their ticket, not just to the playoffs, but to host that game at Princess Auto Stadium in a couple weeks. So they'll get another bye this coming week. The lack of pass rush, and then you look at the way Montreal was able to pressure Zach Collaros. You look at the way that the Toronto Argonauts, probably the best pass rush in the CFL. I say probably, I think definitely they are. The pressure that they were able to get on Collaros to just disrupt everything in the Buck Pierce offense 2 weeks ago, Winnipeg's last game, that loss to the Argos. Would you say that's the greatest concern right now? I know you kind of touched on that, but so often games are won and lost in the trenches. And when, your offense is struggling to run the ball, Brady Oliveira had 35 yards in the first half. You're struggling to give your, veteran, but battered quarterback, Zach Collaros, time to operate. Is that the Achilles heel of this team right now?
Yeah. I think on both sides, right? On offense and defense, because obviously every quarterback is going to play worse under pressure. It's just how it is. No quarterback's going to rather have it to run for their life than sit in a clean pocket and read the field. And I think defensively, they're playing some really good quarterbacks, no matter who they play, right? If they play Saskatchewan or BC, they're playing Harris or Adams or Rourke if he plays. I don't think he will, though. I think Adams should play. But either way, right? Harris is the most accurate quarterback in the league, and Adams can push the ball downfield like nobody else. So they got to get pressure on them if they want to win those games. And likewise, they have to let Zach stay clean, because if he's under pressure, he's not going to be as good, and they need him to be good, because they will look at how he's played this year. It's been a down year for him, hasn't been great, and Oliveira is potentially the MOP, so teams are going to key on Oliveira to stopping him, so they need Collaros to have good games to win, and if they can't protect him, then they're not going to win. So I think that would be my biggest concern, is just keeping him clean and then also generating pressure on defense as well.
I think this is a great point by Ryan Friesen in the live chat. By the way, thanks for the super chat, Ryan. Appreciate that a lot. One thing for
Not
sure.
that I'm ever going to see the money, right, Darrin?
Yeah, right. You know I sent it all to you. Montreal didn't manhandle the Bombers today, said Ryan Friesen. Winnipeg was the better team. That was a concern coming into this game with how dominant Montreal was in week one. Bryson, your perspective on, individual matchups in the, so often I'll call it 4D chess. It's so dynamic, it's so nuanced and layered, and so many different things that can affect a game greatly. How much do you look at two teams that met in the Grey Cup last year, that met week one, that bookend the 2024 regular season with a meeting today in Montreal and Winnipeg, and that, maybe you show everything because you need a win, maybe you don't. And just, the effectiveness of your football team and its preparation and its execution against one opponent versus against another opponent.
Oh, exactly. I think like games like this, right? You don't want to necessarily show everything, and if you do, like, it's all about like the moves and the counter moves, right? Like you do something this way and it works, and then next time the other team's like, all right, well, that worked on us last time, so let's make sure it doesn't work on us again. And then you have to go into that thinking like, okay, last game we ran the ball like crazy on them. They're going to try to stop that. So let's try to pass the ball this game. And it's just back and forth of making these moves, right? Which is why football's so fun, because it's so much, like you said, 4D chess. It's just so much trying to predict the other team, what they're going to do and how you're going to counter it, and what like you're going to do if they do something different that you have to counter.
Yeah. And I wonder whether, if you look at Collaros, Bryson, and DB, he's playing against a Noelthorpe defense, which to my eyes, which are, I've never played football. I don't know the X's and O's a ton, but to my eyes, it must be so hard for an offense to play against a Noelthorpe defense where he brings like 7-8 guys to the line of scrimmage. You don't know who's rushing. You don't know who's dropping back. You don't know who's going to do a delayed blitz, whatever it is. Like, I was getting a headache watching Noelthorpe's defense. I can't imagine what's going on for that offensive line and Brady Oliveira and especially Zach Collaros. If Zach Collaros picks them apart for 331 yards or whatever it was, does he get a higher grade because he's playing against a tougher defense? Because that Montreal defense is legit. They're the best red zone defense in the CFL.
I mean, we don't sort of necessarily grade based on the other team, but we will be like, if he's under pressure, makes these throws, he will get higher grades on those throws because he did them like in a higher sort of pressure situation, or he had a guy in his face and he couldn't step into it. But yeah, like you said, it's playing against that defense is so hard because you have to almost like read the defense before they even snap it, because you have like 2 seconds to throw the ball, you're getting hit. So you can't like wait till a downfield play develops. You have to just be like, okay, who's going to be open right away and how can I hit him right away? And that's super hard because you don't know who's blitzing. So I thought like Collaros had a phenomenal game today. We don't have our grades fully done yet, but I think he's going to grade really well because like he had a great game and he read the defense well and he got the pass off and made some big throws.
I got into a really, I won't call it heated or whatever, but I got into a real good debate following Winnipeg's last game against the Argos, where, people watched Game Day After Dark. I talked about how much of a gamer Zach Collaros is and how he was absolutely nails, especially late in that game, and just doing everything he could despite the pressure on him to make something happen and to lead his team to victory. They ultimately came up short, but this other person, a media member who watches a lot of football, who knows this game, they thought he was terrible. And I couldn't believe that this person whose opinion I trust, I watch a lot of games with them, through the years, that they felt that way. It's so difficult in football to grade an individual because if a pass gets intercepted, that could be on the quarterback, that could be on the pressure, that could be on the receiver, that could be on the defense, the defensive back. It could be on so many different things. Plays can be made, mistakes can happen, people slip. That happened to a ton of Zach Collaros' interceptions earlier this season. You can't really just judge something on the surface of, well, I watched the game and I think he should have made that pass complete versus an interception,
Yeah, definitely. I think like it's always like when we say with Claros too, right? He's always been like a higher risk, higher reward. But I think, like you said, he's a gamer. You're never out of a game when Claros has it, and it's unfair to just look at raw numbers and be like, well, he threw these many picks or whatever, because there's so much nuance to it. Like even when we're going through these games and reviewing them, we have to ask coaches because we're like, I can't tell if this is a miscommunication. Maybe the guy ran it the wrong route, or he did it at the wrong depth, or the coverage was just sometimes the coverage is so good that the quarterback doesn't see it, and it's not necessarily his fault because he just was sort of baited into it, right? So it's like, yeah, he should have thrown it, but it's not a terrible throw or a terrible decision. It was like, oh yeah, I saw what he was seeing, and I would have done the same thing, but the defense just was better on that play. And so I think it's like you said, it is unfair to look at just like the numbers and be like, well, he sucked because they didn't win and he should have made this play. It's like, no, there's a lot more to it than just that.
Schnitzy, I'll let you ask Bryson another question or two before we let him go.
Yeah,
I love having this insight from you, Bryson, somebody that knows this game really well, follows so closely, and a unique perspective with your work on Pro Football Focus.
Yeah, I just want you to continue doing what you're doing, and I'm curious if you can say, how do teams use your data? Because like you come out with this honor roll every week with the best offensive line of the week and the best offensive player, and you have some grades there. But my understanding is that teams actually pay for like a more fulsome stats package from Pro Football Focus. Is that right?
Yeah. So we have a database, which is where I get all the grading stuff, the info that I have. That I tweet out and stuff. It's our PFF Ultimate. It's just our database that has all of our grades and our stats in it. So we sell that to the teams, and they use that because you can basically pull up any situation if you want. You want to see like how Tyrell Ford does on third down on this situation at this part of the game when he's targeted or when they're playing cover three. Right, you can look that up in a second on our stats. So that's what the teams love to use it, because they can sort of see every situation, look at every team they're playing, and scout with that. Can scout their own team based on situations, and then you see like how well they do as well. Like the grades aren't necessarily used a ton with the teams because they have their own grading systems always, right, for how their players are playing. But you can see if it matches up with what you saw. If a coach is like, well, I thought he played really well, and the grades match it, like, all right, then everyone else agrees, and that was a good game, right? But it's the database that they love because they can get access to sort of every situation and all the stats that we have behind it.
Well, and my understanding is like you must save the teams, especially like the video coordinator, a ton of work, Bryson, because prior to PFF, they would have had to crunch all of that themselves in order to scout the next team.
Yeah, and that's what we sold with the NFL, with the college football in the States. It's just like, hey, you guys can pay us instead of having to put all this work in yourself to get to watch every single game and get all these things in there and the videos in there and stuff like that, and sort it by situations, whereas we just do it for you. So that's like, it's been a huge selling point for us. And that's our biggest thing.
Yeah, no, and I know your time is valuable, so I wanted to ask you just one more, Bryson.
Sure.
What is maybe the future of PFF and the CFL in terms of, you've mentioned, I think a couple times, intimated that you sort of use the NFL system to do the CFL work. Is there changes that would have to be, or adjustments that are going to be made in terms of how you break down a CFL game versus, let's say, an NFL game or a college football game?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the biggest thing that I want to sort of adjust, and I'm kind of the forefront of this because I'm the lead CFL guy, is because our grades sort of are based on the NFL. They're based on 11 guys in the field. Sometimes the grade numbers don't come out super high because, like, for example, receiver grades. So they're lower in CFL than NFL, just on average. Not because guys are playing worse, but because there's an extra receiver on the field. So target shares are lower. So our system that punches out these 0 to 100 grades is based on, okay, this guy gets targets on like 30% of his plays, whereas in the CFL it might be 20 because there's an extra guy out there. So there's always more guys targeted. So that's things we have to look at. And the goal is, we're doing a bunch of seasons now. We're kind of getting it so that we have a lot of evidence, right? We can't just change it based off of one season. But as we keep doing this, we've got 3 seasons now of data in our database. We can use that to look back and say, okay, what's working, what isn't, what is like the big changes we have to make on based on like the rules or the alignments in the CFL or the motion and all that. But that's sort of like where we are. And we take the off season this year to to look back at it and say, all right, let's see if we can make some changes to make that a little more fair to the Canadian players and the Canadian system. And then finally, I think we're hoping to get it at some point to be public facing, so people can pay just on the website, pff.com, and pay for our program, and they can go in and actually see all the grades and all the stats as well themselves. They don't have to rely on me tweeting out those images, and I think people would love that a lot because there's a lot of people who want that.
That's awesome.
I would use all my super chat money and pay for that 100%. Darrin, can you imagine if Walby had those? Like he would just turnstile you on the pregame.
Yeah, he would eat them up. No question. No question.
So I'm hoping that we'll get that going.
Yeah, well, it's funny because like the Pro Football Focus, PFF.com, has so much college and NFL content on it, and obviously you do amazing work with the Canadian content. But I just loved how today's game ended following last night's can of worms being opened again by Barstool and all these different American websites. Are like, well, here we go again, another Rouge winner, walk-off winner. This one in overtime last night. With the Elks finishing their season with a win. Just great to see that the Canadian rules, while some kind of scoff at it or laugh at it, say it's not real football. I love reading the comments, reading the replies on Twitter and that sort of thing. But to see the great drama inducing element of the rules, in particular the play clock in Canadian football, showing its value tonight in the Bombers win.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think that's what I love about CFL is that every game is up for grabs late in the game, and it's always an exciting finish because of the way the rules work. So, like you said, people can hate on the rules or hate on these things, but ultimately we get exciting games all the time. And there's so many NFL and college games that just are not exciting, and I'm like, whatever, who cares? This game was over at halftime. Never the CFL, so it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Bryson, before we let you go, I'll give you an opportunity to maybe share with everybody where they can find your work and, read some of your awesome perspective on the Canadian Football League.
Yeah, for sure. So you can find me, my articles are all at pff.com. You can find me on Twitter at PFF_Bryson. I'm always tweeting out CFL grades and stats and just commenting on it. So I'll keep doing that for as long as I can and hit me up there. If you have any questions, I usually answer them. So hopefully you can ask me about grades, ask me about stats, and I'll try to give you an answer.
Awesome. That's great. Well, hey, thanks again. I know Schnitzy was absolutely pumped to have you on, and I let him be the producer, the booker, and line everything up. And thanks for that, Schnitzy, and thank you, Bryson. Appreciate that a lot. I hope we could do this again.
Yeah, me too. I had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, guys. I think we definitely could do it again.
No doubt.
Awesome. Thanks, Bryson. Have a great night.
Yeah, you too, guys. Thank you.
Cheers. Bryson Vesnaver of Pro Football Focus joining us here on GameDay After Dark. I'm just going to pull up his Twitter page one last time. That's PFF's CFL guy, pumping out the CFL data and content. And then he plays a little Ultimate Frisbee at night. But great guy. Awesome to have his perspective, Schnitzy. And thanks again for hooking us up with Bryson there.
Well, he's like you, like he's kind of like a media member, football expert who's very accessible to fans, and he will, like he said, if you tweet him and you see some of his stats and you're like, hey, how did you get that number? What does that mean? Like he'll reply, and it's great, and that fits right in with the feel and the culture of the CFL. Which is so accessible, whether it's players or coaches or media members like you, Darrin, or analysts like Bryson. I think it'll take the CFL to the next level. And I want to ask you, Darrin, like when you vote, because you're a voter for the CFL awards, how has PFF's stats maybe changed the way you look at and analyze and break down different awards races in different categories?
Yeah, that's an interesting question to ask. Those numbers haven't been around for a long time, so
Yeah.
I don't want to exaggerate and say that they have a big influence. That said, they definitely have an influence. In particular in some of the areas that are, the areas that maybe I'm less sure about. As a voter, yeah, we vote in Winnipeg. We pick, the MO awards for, each of those position groups and areas. And then we do it coming out of the West. Our ballot is due tomorrow. And then we do it on the league level. Same too for division all-stars and league all-stars. It can be tough when you're like, what defensive end do I want as, my second choice in the East Division? And it's like, okay, I got these three guys. Who's my fourth choice? So you use all of the resources at your disposal, right? I try to talk to people. I try to comb through the stats. I watch the games. I try to watch all of them. It's very hard to watch 4 games a week for 20 weeks, 21 weeks, right? It's not exactly 4 for 21 weeks, but do 18 times 9. That's how many football games, and then divide that by 2. That's how many football games you got to watch every year. It's tough. I watch every Bombers game start to finish and often twice. And I watch as many West Division games as I absolutely can. And I try to watch the premier matchups across the league. In the East, Montreal's playing. If some teams are jockeying for position, if there's a different quarterback playing, I try to put more emphasis on watching those games. But it's tough. And I take my job with those votes very seriously. So to answer your question in a very long-winded way, as I sometimes do, I do take it into account. As I follow it for longer, it's only been a couple years. The more I follow it, the more I talk to Bryson, the more I talk to people that, develop these statistics, the more conversations I have with Derek Taylor here in Winnipeg, because he charts all the games and really digs into the stats. The more conversations I have with him, the more comfortable I become in, those numbers providing more weight to a decision. But in the end, because I've followed this game and loved this game pretty much since the day I was born, in the end, I try to just dig deep in my gut, use my brain, but dig deep in my gut and my heart to make the right decisions, because it can be tough sometimes. There's been some tough choices through the years. This is going to be another year where it's going to be really, really tough. So I think I was the only person in Winnipeg that voted for 𝘎𝙧𝙧 Nichols as most outstanding defensive player, because I'm not just going to say, well, this guy's Canadian and he leads the team in interceptions and is amongst the league leaders, and just give it to Tyrell Ford. From the plays I see on the field, the value I see, I know it's not most valuable player, but the value I see in the player, and the plays that they make, that's what I weigh it on overall. And that's why I gave it to 𝘎𝙧𝙧, and I gave Tyrell Ford my second vote. As we,
and I think I give you credit for that, for giving it to 𝘎𝙧𝙧, Darrin, because I think, one thing I've noticed is that they've actually thrown at 𝘎𝙧𝙧 more. Like he used to be like the Delvin Breaux of the CFL. The people know he played.
Delvin Breaux was in the CFL.
Yeah, no, I know, but he played in the NFL. He played for the Saints.
He was like the Darrell Revis, the Revis Island.
Right, Revis Island, right? Like nobody threw at Delvin Breaux. Yeah, but they weren't throwing at 𝘎𝙧𝙧 Nichols last year.
We'll get to it, Darryl, I promise.
But they are now, because of Tyrell Ford, they are throwing more to 𝘎𝙧𝙧 Nichols, and look what he's done, right? Like he's had a couple interceptions. He's knocked the ball down. He was rated very highly in Bryson's PFF ratings. And look at his versatility. Look at tonight playing safety. Like I'm astounded by what he can do with an injury to Brandon Alexander, so the fact that he was able to play a little bit of safety tonight. I'm not sure if he played the whole game, because I know Kelly was in a bit, Darrin.
Yeah, they move so many guys, like Michael Griffin, they're moving around, and Retta, like they're doing so many different things, right?
Absolutely. And I love that about the versa. I think they intentionally get guys who can be versatile, and they must do that in practice, where they play different positions. But I think the Bombers have kind of struggled at the safety position. I don't think loved Brandon Alexander as a guy and was a huge impact player for the Bombers. I don't know if he has as much in the tank as he used to. He used to thump guys like crazy.
Yeah.
I
Like,
think
does
he's
he have the
maybe
same
lost.
impact on games that he used to?
Yeah, I don't think he
Yeah.
does. And I think the Hallets have struggled in coverage at safety. And I think Kelly is a raw rookie. Or I guess it's his second year, but he hasn't started. This is new for him. So to be able to put a veteran like Dietrich Nichols in at safety to sort of quarterback that umbrella, those 5 DBs or 6 if you count the Sam, I think is extremely important. And I know the Bombers defense was tested and maybe didn't necessarily pass the test tonight, but that Montreal team, I just want to say this: Montreal is a really good team.
Really good.
I know, of course, the obvious, Captain Obvious, Zach, but Montreal won the Grey Cup. They went on an epic run last year, and they basically are kind of like the Bombers of the last few years. They put away the East Division by Labor Day, basically. They've been coasting. And you saw that I thought Jason Moss had his guys ready, and I think that's coaching. I think Jason Moss is an excellent coach.
What did I tell you? What did I tell you?
He's hyper competitive. And I think, this team has not done well in the past couple of months. And he's like, and you could tell those guys were ready to go. They had Fajardo in there almost the entire game, except for the end. And this was a very, very tight game. And Montreal just simply doesn't make mistakes. That's what jumped out at me, Darrin. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and people in the chat. Montreal, I didn't see them do anything like spectacular. I didn't see any play designs that were incredible. I think the only thing that they do in my eyes is just how Noel Thorpe runs that defense and those, like that line of scrimmage where who the heck is rushing, who the heck is dropping back. But they throw a lot of short stuff. They throw a lot of screens and hitches, but Fajardo is so accurate. Like Moss has taken what Fajardo does well and really ran with it. And I just think Montreal is a great team. They don't do anything exceptionally well, but they just don't make mistakes that I can see, and they're coached well. And I thought they really came to play, and they probably deserved the victory in some ways, although you could argue the other way too.
Well, I want to speak to this comment from Waiters. Jason Moss made some questionable decisions in Edmonton, says Waiters 27, and no doubt, no doubt. Yeah. But I think
he's come a long way.
I think he learned in Edmonton, losing his temper, how he decided to coach, how he chose to coach. I think he learned in Saskatchewan with Cody Fajardo and trying to, my perspective, shoehorn Fajardo into an offense that maybe wasn't fit for his skill set. And then he goes to Montreal and everyone's like, wow, the remarriage of Moss and Fajardo. How is this good? Like, really?
Yeah, right. I know.
They were not good in Saskatchewan. Jason Moss learned. Cody Fajardo didn't start playing football differently or better. Jason Moss learned. And I think that combined with his experience as a coordinator, as a head coach, it doesn't always happen. Not everyone's Mike O'Shea. It doesn't always happen on your first go, right? Wally Buono coached a couple teams. He got fired. Everybody gets fired, right?
Yeah.
It took time and he figured it out, but I'm 100% with you. The Montreal Alouettes make it look easy. The Noel Thorpe defense, Fajardo, Fletcher, Letcher in the return game, the way they cover. Tyrese Beverette, I think could be the MOP of the CFL. I think
I honestly, Darrin, I watched him tonight. The sack he had on Kalaris, his coverage, the way he thumps guys, just tracks guys down, running backs, receivers. Like, this guy can do it all. He is phenomenal. I hadn't really paid attention to Beverette. Watching tonight, I was extremely impressed, and I would not be surprised if that's your MOP. The other thing I just want to say about Jason Moss and Daryl Brandel, our buddy in North Battleford, has echoed this, and some other folks on the chat. See what I did there, Daryl? I know you're not in Alberta. I'm like Jason Moss. I correct myself. I get better. For folks who don't know, I erroneously said that Daryl and his wife Roxanne lived in Alberta. Of course, they don't live in Alberta, but they are coming to the West Final and sitting in section 128, baby. Anyway, Jason Moss's demeanor, that is the thing that I think I've been most impressed about him, Darrin. He used to lose his mind on the sideline of the Edmonton Elks. like something didn't go his way or someone made a mistake, he'd be throwing water balls, throwing his headset. Like you compare that to a guy like Mike O'Shea, who's the ultimate stoic. It doesn't matter what's happening in the game. The Bombers could be getting completely blown out. You can't tell by his demeanor, Mike O'Shea. And I think that steadies the guy. And you mentioned this earlier in the show today, right? He has those guys believing, and he has them steady enough that, like, okay, if we have 15 seconds left, we are going to execute well enough so that we can win this game. Jason Moss has completely turned that around. And as someone who, works as a therapist who studies psychology, it is hard to change your person. Like, he's not necessarily changed his personality per se. He's still fiery, but it is hard to change aspects of your personality to sort of dial that down. That is very impressive. I'm not sure if he worked with a psychologist. I'm not sure if his exit interview in Edmonton was like, dude, you got to hold yourself together because this just is not good for the team. I don't know how he did it, Darrin, but that is not easy to do.
Well, I think, like Mike O'Shea says, you either win or you learn.
Yeah.
And I think that goes for anything. Like, Jason Moss was an incredible quarterback. Like, he was so good. Grey Cup champion, right?
Yeah.
And Grey Cup champion as a coach. And I think you learn early. I think the good ones learn early. I think if you're smart, it doesn't have to be a football thing. If you learn from your mistakes, you can make all the mistakes in the world. Everybody's going to screw up. Everybody's going to lay a turd. Okay. It's just the way the world is.
Darrin with laying a turd.
Yeah. I've laid a few, especially lately with all of this technology set up, and it's been an incredible month I've had dealing with things. So I had to rebuild everything. But God bless the bye weeks. But
yeah,
if you are smart, you learn from those mistakes. And I don't think anybody had to tell Jason Moss this approach isn't working. You get handed the pink slip. I think
Yeah.
I think you know. That's right fair. There. Somebody asked in the live chat. Great to see everybody in the live chat. By the way, we've got over 500 people watching live. Jets game coming up in a few minutes, and we'll keep you updated on that as we will watch more video highlights from this game. Look at the stats. We want to get to your Bonfire Burning Point, your Wallabies Warrior, your Westwood Wide to the right. I think we got a couple candidates for that one, Schnitzy. We'll handle the game balls and the Happy Honker Award as well. But really looking forward to reliving this game with everybody. After a good conversation with Bryson to join us there as well. So your Bonfire Burning Point, Schnitzy, is there a moment in this game that you feel maybe turn things in the Bombers' favor and help them capture a win?
There's so many burning points in this game, Darrin, that I'm just completely on fire. And to have to pick one, I honestly, like, you could look at so many burning points in this game. I've seen in the chat too, and I would agree with many of them. The 72-yard catch by Kenny Lawler when he makes a great adjustment to the football. The Nick Dembski over the shoulder Mickey Mantle catch in the third quarter. Lucky Whitehead's to me, inexplicable, like, what was it, a 54-yard return or 50, something like that. Lucky Whitehead's math, that's the biggest return of the game at the most opportune time for the Bombers to get them back in to a score there, Darrin. The Bombers continued to be last in big play returns in the CFL. They'd only had 2 all year. That's deplorable. Like, it's really, really bad. Like, they're far behind the next worst team. For him to rip it off at that point, like, there's so many burning points. If the game went the other way, which without that win, it probably would have, Darrin, you could have said the Bombers not going for 2 when they were down 2018. I don't get, kicking a single. You could argue that it's Mike O'Shea deciding to even try that 61-yard field goal with those swirling winds in the first place. Maybe it would have been better to throw a pass in that situation that Castillo misses. But you've got to go with this divine wind.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you don't. Like, literally, as soon as that ball is snapped, this wind comes out of, now it had been a swirling wind before, but it ramped up to by a factor of 10. All of it, like, are you kidding me? And it actually makes me emotional to talk about, because as folks know, and all of you have someone that's died, right? But my mother-in-law tragically passed from cancer this year. She it was a 10-month battle, very aggressive cancer. And I feel like she was blowing that wind down on the Montreal Alouettes, like just blowing as hard as she could, blowing that wind, that gale force wind at 𝘎𝙥𝙤𝙧𝙨, who just I don't know how to say it, but like it's not a shanked kick, Darren, but
Mhm.
it catches the wind and then it goes out of bounds at like the 45-yard line. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That I mean, I don't know what I believe in, but that's divine intervention. Maybe my pops was watching down too, who died in 2017. But oh my God, like that's my burning point, and I don't know if I've ever had a more emphatic burning point. I Maybe we even have to change the award to. No, we can't call it blowing point, but we got to call
No.
it someone in the chat. Come on, we got to like,
It
what's
was
a
the
burning point?
bonfire burning point. It was,
Winding.
everything got
Oh
lit
my
at that
God.
point.
I guess you could say, it's like adding oxygen to the fire, right? Anyway, I
There
could
you
go
go.
on with
Yeah. Yeah.
metaphors, but
No, that's,
holy crap. Like, have you ever seen anything close to that?
I mean,
Insane.
yeah, I wish I was there, because it's almost like moments like that, instances like that. It's you want to feel it. It's like, do you feel that wind? Do you feel that energy? Do you feel that, presence, if you will, of the football gods? Absolutely crazy. This is my bonfire burning point in the fourth quarter, 2:39 remaining. Kalaris trying to stretch the field, picked off. And Kabianento kicks it up. Tyrese Beverette takes it. Nice return. And Montreal looked to, okay, we got 2:20 left. Big pick, huge momentum swing. And, well, that clapping from the Alouettes faithful would not last long. This pick was reversed following video review, as it was ruled an incomplete pass. To me, if that ball was not complete, but intercepted and didn't hit the turf, like you talk about bounces going your way, football gods, there's that one, but ultimately it hit the turf. We're going to get a good look at it here. There's Ontario Wilson, who eclipses 1,000 yards down on the ground right there. Eclipses 1,000 yards in his rookie season here in the Canadian Football League. The intended target there. And there's Mike O'Shea's right-hand man, Mike Miller. Seems to be right, just attached at his hip all the time. But video review would determine this was incomplete. To me, that is the bonfire burning point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could go with the obvious, like the missed kick and then getting the ball back, for sure. I could probably change it to that, but that's kind of where I was.
Yeah. But Sard brings up a question here just based on like picks that were called back or weren't picks. I didn't see it because I couldn't get my dog in from the house, in from the yard into my house, so I could go to my buddy's place and watch the game. By the way, sorry to everybody who heard Daphne barking like a crazy dog for half of the show. My wife took her outside. I texted my wife, "Can you please take the dog outside?" Anyway, I'm probably in trouble. I'm probably in the doghouse.
You're not in any doghouse. No,
I don't know. Anyway, I was listening to the radio on the way to my buddy's place, and Tyrell Ford, I think it was the first pass of the game by Fajardo, apparently had a pick, but it was called out of bounds. Was he bobbling it? Was he out of bounds? Like, I'm interested to hear people's take on that one, because I was pretty excited in the car, and then I was like, no, it's incomplete. That's too bad, because he would have tied Roland Milligan.
Sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah, big intro. I was about to make my most important point of the year. No, I'm just kidding, Darren.
A very salient one. Daryl Brandel says your dog is super pumped too. Yeah, you can't hate on him.
It's true.
For being excited. I know when you joined the stream before we went live on air, I was like, Schnitzy, just give me quiet for a couple minutes so I could get the stream set up. I appreciate that. I hope I didn't deflate your tires too much. Corey May says he feels like Ford had it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to, I'll tee up, Schnitzy, your Westwood wide to the right. I just wanted to play this. Was another huge play that I really thought was helping Montreal solidify themselves as the winners of this game. Ultimately, they weren't, but this was, just a huge play to the Winnipeg one by Lindsay off the arm of Davis Alexander. This guy looks good. This quarterback looks really, really good.
Yep. Yep.
You got a westward wide to the right?
Yes, I do. Let me just find it here. Okay. This is a bit off topic, but it's CFL. I thought Randy Ambrosie's breaking news that he was retiring, which I'll say in quotes, Darren. I'm interested to hear people on the chat and your take on this one. I thought, he said in his interview with Dave Naylor at halftime, he wanted to make the announcement now because he didn't want it to be a distraction. Excuse me? You just made it a distraction, dude. Because you made this announcement at halftime of the last couple games of the regular season when so much is on the line, and instead of analysis about the game from the panel, we're getting Randy Ambrosie announcing that he's retiring.
So when would it be better?
At the end of the season. I think this was a face-saving move from Randy
I think if you do it Monday morning, it's a distraction on the week leading up to the first.
Absolutely. Do it after the Grey Cup. No, but I mean, do it after the Grey Cup, Darren. Why did it have to be done now?
Do you know why you don't do it after the Grey Cup? Because there is the fan state of the league. There is the State of the Union address to the media. There are opportunities for national media, local media, everybody who will collect in Vancouver at the Grey Cup to talk about it, have those conversations, ask Randy Ambrosie those questions. He can't leave it up in the air and keep it a secret from anybody. Like he said to Dave Naylor, as soon as I made my decision, secrets don't last. So I wanted to come out with it. I think he did it at the right time. I really do.
You make a good point about Grey Cup week, but what about before Grey Cup? What about after the division finals when you know who's playing in the Grey Cup? What about the week leading up to the Grey Cup? Why not do it then? Like, why do it?
Because you're taking away from the Grey Cup. You're taking away from the Grey Cup. You do it now, you've got tons of things. We don't know what's going to happen next week. BC could upset Saskatchewan. There could be crazy. Montreal could get upset in the East Final. There's, we got awards are going to be announced. The West Division nominees and the East Division nominees are going to be announced on Monday or Tuesday as our ballots are due tomorrow. Some people in the live chat saying announce it tomorrow. What, are you going to announce it on a Sunday? No, you're not going to announce it on a Sunday. I think doing it on a Saturday, doing it at halftime of the, final games of the regular season, I do think it was the best time to do it. Because I don't know if there was a better time other than earlier than now. And I don't think I don't think Randy Ambrosie was sitting on this for a couple days. I really don't.
Do you think that Gregory Liverpool is saying I'm being schooled on this point? I think, Darren, I'd like to get your thoughts and people in the chat. Was Ambrosie going to be brought back? This maybe it's just a vibe I'm getting.
It's not brought back. It is, but
I think he was. I think he was going to be ousted. That's just my gut feeling on this one, Darren, and that's why he wanted to get out ahead of it and say retiring. Like CFL 60 OG saying, put out a press release. I don't know. It didn't smell right to me, Darren. I didn't like it. I thought it took away from the game. I thought maybe there could have been a better time. I don't know, maybe before the game, but like in the middle of a game, why are you so anxious to get out in front of it that you have to do it in the middle of a game? Well, like I just didn't like it.
It was announced and then there was an interview, right? So it was obviously done in conjunction with the host broadcaster. And I think they did it, because they knew a lot of people were watching this game. And I think it's important to put news out, especially in the Canadian Football League, put news out when people are going to be paying attention to it. And the distraction it would be at a different time compared to now is way worse than the final game of the regular season. Montreal had nothing to play for. Yeah, Winnipeg had something to play for, but I mean, the playoffs were pretty much set outside of Winnipeg and Saskatchewan and who's going to host the game. I think it was done the right way. And I think TSN and the Canadian Football League wanted to ensure people heard about it. People knew about it. This isn't a 4:30 p.m. on a Friday news release that you hope gets left in the fax machine. That's what they used to do in the 90s. Gets left in the fax machine for the weekend, right? That's just my perspective.
How do you think Ambrosie's done though? Like, if you're the board of governors of the league, would they have been bringing him back? Because I don't know, man. I don't know that I've necessarily had a problem with Ambrosie. I think the global initiative has been actually kind of cool. I've liked it. I've liked seeing those Aussie punters. I've liked seeing guys from all over the world on your team, like a Solomon Karamoko, for example, Darrin, or a 𝘎𝙥𝙤𝙧𝙯 Hansen would probably be the most noteworthy global player. I've liked the global thing. I just don't know if it's moved the needle in terms of viewership internationally the way
I think it'll take
Ambrosie
time.
had hoped. It
That's
might.
for sure. Yeah, I agree with you.
They haven't been able to get a team in Atlantic Canada. That was Ambrosie's goal. Is that his fault? I don't know, because you need to have the people that actually have the people that have the actual money to do that. I don't know. Sometimes do I think he talks out of both sides of his mouth? Yeah, the Genius Sports thing was pretty stupid. But I don't have an opinion either way. I think Toronto maybe is a bit of a stain on his resume because they haven't really been able to generate over 10, 15,000 people a game, which is kind of what you kind of need. But again, is that his fault? I mean, it's Toronto. They're the fifth most important franchise in the city, after all the other big league teams in Toronto FC. So I think BC has done well. I think Saskatchewan has done well. Like, Winnipeg's done extremely well. I don't know. We don't want to make this all about Randy Ambrosie. I just I don't know what your opinion is on him.
Yeah. I don't really know if I have much to share on that right now, to be honest. But a Westwood wide to the right, I don't know if I have one.
Well, what did you think of the Bombers not going for two, down 2018, like in the third quarter?
What is the third quarter? There's too much football left.
But who cares if you're down by 2 versus down by 1? That's just what I don't understand. Like going for 2 is successful 60% of the time or something. Like, why wouldn't you go for 2?
I think you want to. It's Mike O'Shea's approach. This isn't me arguing it. It's me arguing for what happened, right? It doesn't mean that's my opinion, but it's Mike O'Shea. It's his approach. He's not so, if the opposite approach is to go for 2 every single time in a 21-0 game, in a 20-0 game, you go for 2, right? Or I guess you would go by 8s, like in a 22-0 game, you would go for 2 again, a third time, after 3 touchdowns. But it's not the way Mike O'Shea coaches and strategizes and sees the game. So I don't know. It's I kind of get it because it's the third quarter. There's still a lot of football to play, a lot. And, if you think about it, 1 point does matter because a team could kick 2 field goals and you score a touchdown. There's 1 point difference.
I think O'Shea did it because of momentum, because the Bombers were finally getting some momentum, making it close. Yep. I think he didn't want to sap the momentum out of that effort of the touchdown to not get the 2-pointer. But I still think I would have gone for 2. I think you want to tie the game, don't you? Like, if you're a good team and you're mentally strong, then that doesn't sap your momentum. It's just like, okay, we got the touchdown. We didn't get the 2-pointer. Big deal. We're down by 2. This is a game now. Like, I don't see the downside in not going for going for 2. But that could have been a wide to the right. But maybe that's my second wide to the right.
Okay, so you get 2 wide to the rights, and I'll.
Well, you didn't take one, so I'm going to take one.
There you go.
I get 2. That's how we should do it.
I like that. No, I honestly like that. That's good. People in the live chat, let us know. Give us your Westwood wide to the right. And lots of people were giving us their bonfire burning point. Let's get into Walby's Warrior. Who are you giving that to
Yeah.
tonight?
I think you could talk about the O-line, but that's going to be for another award, Darren. For me, I'm giving just to give you a heads up, and people in the chat. I will be giving out a lot of game balls tonight. I'm just saying, I will be giving out a lot of game balls. But the Walby's Warrior for me is Sergio Castillo. I don't hang missing that 49-yarder on him, Darren. It was a swirling wind. It was a really, really tough conditions. That was in the first quarter. He barely misses it. He then, he then nails a couple field goals. I believe it was a 53-yarder he hits, and then a shorter field goal. And then he misses that 61-yarder. But like we've talked about all year with the Bombers, MO is snap and clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's able to put that behind him. Essentially, you're thinking, I've just lost the game for the team, missing that 61-yarder again in difficult conditions with the wind. He then goes, he nails. He is like this from that kick to win the game from 49 yards with that wind, with that rain that all of a sudden came down, Darren. Like, Are you kidding me? He goes, just nails, like cool, calm, collected. Goes there, nails a walk-off winner when everything for this Bombers team was on the line. And I want to emphasize that. Everything was on the line. Yes, they made the playoffs anyway. Yes, they would have had a home playoff game no matter what. But to get that West final, to get that first round bye, to see Saskatchewan and BC clobber each other and then limp into that game with the loudest fans in the CFL at Princess Auto Stadium, as you call it, the Madhouse of Matheson, everything was on the line for Sergio Castillo and those Bombers. And he nails a kick in very, very difficult conditions after missing a couple. You could argue he lost the Bombers the game last week. He missed a makeable 42-yarder. He misses a 48-yarder off the iron. The mental strength to be able to go there, and I'm not just talking about his talent, because he has talent. He has an NFL leg. Just to nail that 49-yarder after what he's been through in the last couple of games with those conditions, with everything on the line. My goodness, that was exceptional. And shout out to the long snapper and she and the holder there in those conditions too. But because to nail that, I was just gobsmacked, to use that word again.
Mm-hmm. Brandon Rodriguez, Walby's Warriors, Mike O'Shea takes a lot of keep the spirits up when you lose the ball with minute 5 seconds left in the game. But they were able to get it back from a tough punt from the Montreal Alouettes. And there's Mike O'Shea. Other people in the live chat saying he doesn't get too high or too low. Oh yeah, it was freezing. Never gets too happy or too angry. Well, here he is. Here he is, quite happy as we let this play. Hey, you think he's happy? Yeah, I think so. I think.
You know what else? I'm happy too, because I just made another $20 from Alana Tanner, a friend who gave us a super chat, Darren. Another super chat tonight.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
People must be thinking I need to buy like a muzzle for Daphne, so they're giving me some money. I know Sasha's given me money in the past for Daphne's toys. She has so many toys,
you got
Sasha.
A super sticker.
A super sticker? What's that?
I don't know, but it's $20 from Alana Tanner.
Sasha, Daphne has so many toys. They are basically strewn over the main floor in my house, which drives me nuts. But she is a very, very happy puppy. So thank you.
Yeah. So a super sticker, I think you could see it on YouTube, but not here in my streaming software. It's a fan character bouncing their heart-shaped ponytail with stars in their eye. I guess is the...
nice.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Alana. Appreciate that. Schnitzy, checks in the mail. Checks in the mail, buddy.
E-transfer's fine. E-transfer. I don't want to... You're not going to do a check. It's just not going to happen. E-transfer, buddy.
I'll send you a traveler's check.
Traveler's check.
Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. Okay. Jets Flames tied at 1 early in the first period. Jets were down 1-0 early. But I will give my Walby's Warrior. You gave yours to Sergio
Castillo.
Yeah, that's a great pick. That's a great pick.
Thank you.
I don't know if I can argue with you there. I think he was the Warrior tonight?
You don't have to. Sometimes it's just that obvious, or I'm just that
Yeah.
right that you can't even take another position.
That's right. Yep. That's right. Schnitzy, I guess you could probably, the Happy Honker Award is one that I know we like to give out for certain things. What are your thoughts on the air horns? And would love people in the live chat to let me know, because it's incredible, those frickin' horns.
Oh, you know what, dude? Like, I have to be honest, and this is probably not a popular take. The air horns don't bother me in the least.
Really?
No,
How come?
because I don't even notice them.
They
I am
bother
so
everybody.
into
They bother everybody
I
else.
am I am so into the game, Darren. They just become background noise to me. I don't care. Um, and I think people maybe, I don't want to sound condescending. I think what I appreciate about the air horns, like I'll be honest, they annoy me for about 5 minutes in the beginning of the game, and then I just tune them out. Like I'm desensitized. I think what is cool about the air horns is it shows how into the game those fans are. And Montreal's not necessarily an easy market for CFL. They've lost their team before. They only have it now because of the success of the Baltimore Stallions, right? And now they're with Pierre whatever Pelado, whatever his name is, who owns Videotron. Like they have very solid ownership there. But McGill Stadium is selling out. Like they're getting sellouts in Montreal. They have a really good team. If those fans, and maybe it's a Quebecois thing, people in Quebec are different. If they like to support their team with those air horns, who cares? Like it doesn't bother me. They're passionate. Like I've stopped using cowbells because the people around me were so annoyed with my cowbell. like I know that you can't hear them they're not as annoying on TV, the cowbells, but they're certainly annoying to other fans. Actually, I have a bull bell. You can probably
You
see
do
it
a
in the
lot of things
background.
that are annoying to me.
Oh, I know. It's amazing you keep me around, but the air horns, I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I don't care, but I know a lot of people hate them. And I get that too. I'm not arguing with you. It's just me personally.
Yep.
It doesn't bother me.
Yep.
You? What do you think?
They drive me a little nuts. But I'm,
Well, you have very, sorry to interrupt, but people
I'm
don't know, like
auditorially sensitive.
oh my God. There'll be times when we're on the phone and you'll be like, are you near like a semi or something? And I'll be like, I don't know, Darren.
It's
I
your
don't know what's
kids
going on.
screaming
I'm
usually.
just walking my dog here. He's like, did a garbage truck just drive by? I'm like, I don't know, Darren. I'm just walking my dog. Like, you hear everything. You would die in my house with my kids screaming and my
Probably.
dog and my cats and my
Yep.
wife.
Yep.
Oh my God, buddy. It's
the
too
only
funny.
horn. The only horn I can handle is this horn. You got a Happy Honker Award tonight?
Oh, I got a good honker today.
Oh, you always got a good honker, my guy.
Absolutely. Right here. The schnoz, as we like to say in Yiddish.
Oh, is that what I wasn't talking about your face, but yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
oh, Darren. Truly is after dark. DB, bringing it. You just totally derailed me. Okay, happy honker, right. My happy honker goes to Mike O'Shea for taking the wind in the fourth quarter. Now, could he predicted that gale force divine wind? No. But he didn't take the ball in the first quarter. He didn't take the ball in the third quarter. Montreal received both times. He had the wind in the fourth quarter. The weather was to his advantage. And I know that I'm not saying this was akin to the Grey Cup in 2021, where that wind in Hamilton that day when the Bombers won in overtime with Castillo's 5-for-5 field goals and a couple of key singles, Darren. Taking the wind at the end of that game was massive. The Bombers came back from 12 down. I'm not saying it's that level, but it's those little things that can be the difference between winning and losing. And Mike O'Shea has done a lot of winning. And I think that played a key role in the end of the game because whether you had a gale force wind or not, Zima, the Montreal punter, kicking into the wind at the end of the fourth quarter, that mattered.
Yep.
And Sergio Castillo having the wind, for that 49-yarder. I mean, even his 61-yarder, he missed it, but he had the distance on it. He had the wind behind him there. He just missed it to the right or to the left from his vantage point.
And with distance,
I think that was I know people on the chat are saying this, and I agree. He often does take the wind, or almost always. But I think that was a key decision in this game. And in the CFL, the Crazy Football League, where weather is a factor because almost every stadium is outdoors, those little decisions matter. And I give him credit for taking the wind.
I thought it was so apropos, or at least on point, how I think it was Marshall Ferguson, the play-by-play on TSN today, said how this was reminiscent of Justin Medlock, 61-yarder inside BC Place in the playoffs.
Yeah, I remember that.
It reminded me a lot of that. The dead air kick.
Yeah. I
Monica,
remember that.
Monica says she avoids watching most games in Montreal because of the air horns, but she's glad she watched today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I could see why they would get on people. I just not a very auditory person. My wife would agree with that. I don't hear what she says half the time. I've got my hearing tested. I'll just tell this quick story. I got my hearing tested a few years ago. And I go to the guy. He's like, "You're a little young to get your hearing tested." I'm like, "Yeah, my wife says I need to get my hearing tested." He's like, "Oh, it's interesting. There's so many husbands I see, young husbands, who come and get their hearing tested." And he said, "Your hearing's just fine, my friend." Like, is it? Okay.
You hear, but you don't listen.
Exactly.
Right.
So now my strategy for all you husbands out there, and I know I'm being gender, I'm being whatever the word is, I'm being stereotypical here, but for all you husbands or partners out there who have a hard time listening and not hearing, as Darrin so aptly put it, don't multitask. If your wife or partner says to you, "Hey, I need to tell you something," stop what you're doing, put down the dishes you're doing, or put down the knife you're using to cut vegetables, go into the room where she or they or he is, and say, "Okay, what do you want to tell me?" Stop what you're doing, go to where they are, look at them, and then the last thing, Darrin, repeat back to them. "Okay, what I just heard you say was I have to take our daughter to dance at 12:30 and whatever, right?" And then they're like, "Yes, thank you. I know it seems silly, but it will save your marriage."
To digress, that's also just a good way of communicating about like important things. If your partner needs support, if they say something to you, instead of reacting, sometimes maybe in a negative way, you can say, "What I'm hearing you say is," and then you tell them how you're feeling about it, but put it that way, and it's a lot more digestible.
Absolutely.
Secret tip.
Absolutely. So you're talking about my honker and your secret tip. This is amazing. This is the best show ever.
Wow. That was a wow as much as this was. Nick Dembski with an incredible catch and run.
God.
This is Zach Schnitzer at his best, finding guys like Dembski on those seam routes. This was huge. This put reassurance in me that Winnipeg's offense wasn't going to be completely flat all day. Watching Dembski in the waggle, few do it better than him. It's not like he's got world beater speed, but let me pull that back. Here he is. Okay. There's 3 receivers and 4 defenders. And Dembski, he's already looking back because he knows I beat these guys. They're leaving me. I really don't know what 26 is doing. Beverett, is it 25? Oh, that's 25. He just lets Dembski go. A great job with the Willie Mays overhead scoop. The old breadbasket catch or whatever they call it, by Nick Dembski. That was a great play.
I thought, Darrin, you and Bryson were talking about Collaros. I thought, it was unfortunate. He just overthrew Kenny Lawler when the Bombers were in the red zone the first drive, or second drive maybe, in the first quarter, I think. He just overthrew him, and Lawler almost got it, to his credit, but just couldn't secure it when he hit the ground. But I thought Collaros was phenomenal
Mm.
in this game. I thought in a game where they couldn't get the run game going, everything depended on the pass game pretty much. I mean, Brady Oliveira had 11 yards receiving, 35 yards rushing. Like the Montreal was just playing the box to stuff the run there. And I thought Collaros 75%, 331 yards, 1 touchdown. He had a long of 72 to Kenny Lawler and an efficiency rating of 118. And I don't know how they get that number, to be honest, but it's a good number. I know it's a good number, 118. He played phenomenally well. And when the Bombers needed those big chunk explosion plays, he had them. He had them in spades. And I just thought he was he could have been a warrior tonight. Although you have to give it to Castillo. But I think I'll just say this now. I think if the Bombers are going to win the Grey Cup this year, Darren, I think Collaros is going to have to play at this level. And I know maybe that sounds like obvious, but this is a running team. This is a team whose bread and butter is to bully you at the line of scrimmage and wear you down. They did that in Hamilton a couple weeks ago, but they're not going to be able to do that all the time because teams can scheme against that. Teams can load the box on you, and it doesn't matter if you're Walter Payton or Brady Oliveira. You can't run through a wall. If there's no openings, if they fill all the gaps, the A gap, the B gap, whatever, C gap with guys, you can't run the ball. You're just basically just going to be a crash test dummy running into the wall again. Who cares if the airbag works? Yep. Or in this case, the airbag is Zach Collaros. They're going to have to be able to be better at passing the ball than they have been this season. They've had spurts. They had the 55-point explosion against Edmonton where Collaros throws 6 touchdowns, but that's been the outlier. This team has struggled. This team has struggled consistently week in and week out to pass the football. And tonight, this was vintage Collaros. I mean, that 6 touchdown pass, that game, that was something else. But this game, he doesn't throw a pick. Now, yes, one gets called back because of the illegal contact, but it is what it did. The illegal contact make a difference in that play, right? Maybe if there was no illegal contact, maybe Zach goes to that guy. I don't remember who it was who was bumped basically on his route, but I think Collaros, he has not played. I know I'm going on and on here. Let me just say this. Collaros, I ran the numbers. We talked about it a number of weeks ago, Darren. I ran the numbers. Yep. Collaros has not played well in the playoffs for Winnipeg.
No,
he just simply hasn't. He has more interceptions than touchdowns. He averages about 220 yards a game. He struggled in the last 2 Grey Cups and Western Finals. He didn't like in 2019, but what?
But he does enough in those games.
I don't know. He's thrown a lot of picks, Darren.
I would say that they haven't needed to rely on him in those games. I wouldn't say that he hasn't played great. I think that he has done enough. He hasn't lost them the game. Let's remember the Grey Cup loss to the Argos a couple years ago. That was a 2 interception game by a quarterback for the Blue Bombers, and it wasn't Zach Collaros.
Well, yeah, one of them was what's his name?
2 of them were.
No. Collaros threw a pick to Muamba in that game.
Yes,
in
the
fourth quarter. But who's the other guy? Plays for Edmonton now. Oh my God, I'm blanking.
Dakota Prukop.
That play still makes me so angry. The fact that they had Dakota Prukop throwing a 60-yard bomb in the Grey Cup, like, what are you doing? But anyway, that I don't. You're right. I'll agree with you there. I don't think Collaros has been the reason they've lost, but he hasn't done enough for them to necessarily win. I don't think he hasn't elevated his game, and have the defenses in Toronto and Montreal respectively have amazing games in those games? Maybe, but I think he is going to have to play better than he has in the past playoff games because you cannot rely on the run. Now, the cold weather, yes, the run game becomes more important, but teams can scheme against the run.
You're right.
And they did it tonight, Darren. Montreal did it tonight, and they did it to great effect. Oliveira was basically a non-factor tonight. Now, did he block and give Zach time? Yeah, probably if you ran the film back. But Collaros brought it today, and he's the reason that they won, I think you could argue. And he's going to need to be the reason, I think, in the West Final, or if they make it to the Grey Cup.
Are the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the best shape they could hope going into the playoffs? And I don't mean physical shape or health-wise. I mean playing the football that they want to play.
I think they are. I think losing, I guess it's easy to say in hindsight, I think losing a couple weeks ago was a kick in the butt for this team that had basically they'd won 8 games in a row, and they'd won a lot of close games, right? And sometimes when you win, like, it's hard to win in the CFL. It's hard to win 8 games in a row in the CFL. All these coaches know each other, all these players know each other. And they beat a lot of teams pretty close. 1 or 2 plays hinged on those wins. In the law of averages, that's not going to keep happening. And it came back to the mean against Toronto, right? And there was a few plays that if the Bombers would have had them, they win. You know, on the goal line, they get stuffed. Castillo's field goal, Zach losing the football in like the 25-yard line of Toronto. I think for the psychology of the team, I think that was an important loss, because you either lose or you win or you lose. They lost, and I think they won. They learned a lot from that, and I think they did just enough in this game to win. And they're going to have that mental edge where they're playing to the final whistle to be successful in the playoffs, because this is the CFL. I mean, in any league, in any football league, Darrin, anything can happen any given Sunday, but especially in the CFL, like, anything can happen.
Agreed.
And like the Bombers turned. Yeah, look at tonight. But listen, they played mistake-free football. They didn't turn the ball over. That's been huge, I think. And I know this isn't rocket science either. The ball is the cup, as Lapalisse likes to say. If you don't turn the ball over in the CFL, you have a very good chance of winning. And they didn't tonight. And I neither did Montreal. But I this game, like, if you look at the stats, if you look at the stats in this game, first downs 19-19, second down efficiency, I believe they were both. Let me pull this up, Darrin. This was an extremely close game. First down 19-19, second down conversion, both hovering around 50-58%. Offensive plays 48-53. Average gain, Winnipeg 8, Montreal 71. Net offense, Winnipeg 384, Montreal 375. It, like, aside from the rushing, which Montreal almost doubled their rushing total, this was like as evenly matched as you get.
Yep.
And the Bombers won this one. And they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to make those good decisions in the next couple of games if they're going to win another championship. And for me, my God, if they even make it to the Grey Cup this year, I think that will be exceptional. Like, do I want to win the Grey Cup? Of course. But to start 0-4 and then 2-6, and dummies like me saying the dynasty is over or the good times are over, which, by the way, Adam Bighill tweeted at me, like, oh, this is from the guy who said the good times were over or whatever. Like, I sometimes forget, like, he remembered.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm bulletin board material in the Bombers locker room, but I was like, oh my God, I got to be more careful what I say. Because, I mean, you're used to that being in the media, right? Like, you have to be extremely judicious. A lot of people
say, like, why are you being so hesitant to say something so affirmative? Yeah. There's a reason. I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been covering this team I've been covering this team since 2011. Right? I've been covering this team. I've been covering pro sports and amateur sports, elite amateur sports for 15 years. I've learned those lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you have, and I am learning them too. Because Biggie laid into me there, and I was, on the one hand, I was like, whoa, super cool. Adam Bighill tweeted at me and he remembered what I said. On the other hand, I'm like, uh-oh, that guy could kill me with his right fingernail. Pinky finger. Yeah. Pinky fingernail, he could kill me. Well, right? Like, choke me out.
Biggie's such a great person, right? Yeah. Smiling faces, his charity.
Absolutely.
The work
Yeah.
he does in the community beyond that with other charities and with other individuals and other groups, just the type of individual he is, the way he deals with the media, the way he is respected by his teammates and his coaches and his former teammates and coaches and officials. And he really is an impressive man, a really impressive man. I've said that to his face. I'd heard good things when he joined the Winnipeg Blue Bombers from people really singing his praises in BC. And he's lived up to, I told him, like, I heard these things and you've lived up to it and then some.
Absolutely.
Very impressive guy. I think sometimes you can forget that these, like Adam Big Hill aside, okay? When you criticize or when you analyze or when you see things, how you see things, I think it can be easy to dehumanize athletes and coaches and officials. You kind of, they're not real people, but they are real people. And you have to keep that in mind, even if you never have to look them in the face, if you're a fan or somebody, keyboard warriors, right?
Well, and I think they're real people too, in the sense that they get affected by what they read, whether it's from Darrin Bauming or an idiot fan like Zach Schnitzer. They get affected by that. They're human, right? Like, they're putting themselves on the line. They're putting themselves in front of a national audience, in front of 32,000 and change screaming fans, right? Like, and they put everything into it because the Bombers only bring in guys that give everything.
Yeah.
They don't bring in guys that are just half-assed, that don't come in at 5 a.m. and watch film. Like, these guys put in everything, and they're gonna make mistakes. Like, Ontario Wilson drops a pass from Zach Collaros late in the fourth quarter that would have set up Sergio Castillo in a more makeable field goal than that 61-yarder.
Yeah.
Like, it just basically hit him in the hands. But, like, he's a human being. You can't rip a guy just for one little mistake like that, right? They're human. He'd just been injured on the play.
We were saying it earlier today. Everybody makes mistakes.
Absolutely. Even
Everybody
me.
Screws up.
Even me.
Even me. Everybody could say that. Even me.
Absolutely.
Even me. That's why they play the games, right? That's why you don't know what you're going to get until the final gun shoots, the final horn sounds. I think that's honestly the beauty of the sport, the beauty of sport, period. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I'm just blown away by everybody in the live chat being involved in the conversation, joining us here on Game Day After Dark. Really all season. This is the final game of the regular season. We got a bye this coming week. Is the 11-7, not 0-4, not 2-6, 11-7 Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Can you imagine?
Yeah, baby.
11-7. They will host the West Final. I don't even have the date of that. Let me pull out the old clipboard. Saturday, November 9th. Saturday, November 9th will be the West Final.
5:30? Yeah.
I think so.
And they changed the Jets game, right?
Now you're
They changed the Jets game time, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it boggles my mind that people would feel divided on that. Like, this is a playoff game for the Bombers. This is a regular season game for the Jets. Big deal. But hey, it moves the needle, right? Like, there are fans who are not going to watch the Bomber game because there's a Jets game, even though it's a playoff game, right? We have to understand that there's more Jets fans in this province than Bombers fans.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Maybe.
Or the Jets have a bit of a higher profile, I would say.
Like, what's a fan? Is it somebody who watches every game, who watches this show,
I think there's probably more Jets diehards, just in terms of raw numbers in this province, than Bombers diehards.
Sure.
There's enough people that they like the Jets. If the Jets are playing or the Bombers are playing in the playoffs.
But when Winnipeg wins the Grey Cup, when they win the Grey Cup in 2019 or 2021, are they celebrating? Like, yeah,
absolutely,
the Bombers won. Cool.
Yeah.
Cheers. Hey, right on. Like, that's a fan. Are they a diehard? Maybe not. But I think that's fair if you went with if you went with
Diehards.
Die Hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the Jets changing, or the NHL or whoever it was changing, I don't know who makes that decision. Maybe you know, but just changing the time of that game is
It's the
very
TV people.
welcome.
That's where the money is.
That's fair. Yeah,
That's
probably right. Yeah.
Schnitzy, I don't know what this comment from Matt Hyman means, but he's got the chicken and the leg.
Oh, I think that's KFC.
Oh, yes.
Kyle F. and Connor, shorthanded goal.
Oh, there you go. 2-1. Jets leading late in the first.
I mean, this is pretty cool. Hey, Darren, with just a side note with the Jets here, the Jets and the Flames are the last. Oh no, the Flames have lost one in regulation, but you could say they're the sort of the hottest teams in the National Hockey League meeting tonight. If the Jets win this one, wow.
This is the Battle of Atlanta, I like to call it. Yeah. Right? You had the Atlanta Flames. They didn't work in Atlanta,
Absolutely.
so they moved to Calgary. And you got the Atlanta Thrashers that moved to Winnipeg, obviously.
We better get to game balls because I've got lots.
You got lots of game balls?
I got lots of game balls.
Before we do, if I can, what's this? Now, how about this? Okay. What about this? This right here is Wayne Gretzky's stick. And there is a book written by a Winnipegger. His name is Douglas Savage. The book is called My New Hero. Link to that book, or you can find it on Amazon, in the video description below. Okay. An awesome story of Doug and his friends when they were really, really young, rink rats kicking around the rink, and a chance encounter, which turned into a 45-minute walk and talk with Wayne Gretzky, leading to a lifelong journey and story about Gretzky, Douglas, his friends, that stick, and just amazing legend and lore about the game of hockey that, you know, whether you're a diehard or a casual fan like we were talking about, you will appreciate this story. It's called My New Hero, Tales of the Rink Rats, written by Douglas Savage and John Davidson. Douglas Savage, born and raised here in Winnipeg. Link in the video description below. You got to check this book out. Christmas is right around the corner. So is Hanukkah. And
damn right,
it would make a great gift for someone in your life, regardless of their affinity to the Jets or the Oilers or Gretzky or whatever. It's an amazing story. I'm digging into it as we speak, and enjoy it a lot. I think you will too. So go check that out because Doug's been in the live chat. Here he is on YouTube. My new hero. 2-1 Jets. I think he's a Jets fan.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah. Pick up the book.
I got to get it. You got to send me a copy. Come on.
Yeah. Okay, Schnitzy, you got a game ball?
Oh, I got several. I want to give a few game balls, just not just for today's game, Darren, but just for reaching some milestones here. You've got Ontario Wilson, who might be the most outstanding rookie in the CFL this year. I think actually he's on the odds-on favorite now. He gets 83 yards on 8 of 10 targets, long of 52 or large. He goes over 1,000 yards as a rookie receiver, as a guy who basically was invisible the first few games. Then he had that big breakout game in Calgary when we won 41-37. I thought to get our second win of the season, I thought Wilson was, he did have that drop, which could have cost us the game, which should have cost us the game. But yeah, I thought he goes over 1,000 yards. I'm going to give him a game ball. He was especially targeted, I thought, early, Darren. He had a few key catches early in the game. Lawler, we talked about, 105 yards. That 72-yard catch and run was an absolute game changer. Yeah. The way he makes the adjustment on that ball, just his hand, like the size of his hands and his grip strength when he gets that ball, it's crazy. By the way, grip strength, it's a thing, and I'll tell you why. At work, just for fun, one of the people I work with brought in this grip monitor where you have to squeeze it for 4 seconds and it gives you a number.
Okay.
So like 100 of us did this grip thing, men and women. So I got a grip strength of 138, and the guy said, "Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good."
Yep.
I work with Chris Greaves, and people may remember Chris Greaves as a O lineman with the Bomber in the early 2010s.
Yes.
He then he went on to go win a Grey Cup with Edmonton in 2015.
And he had his jersey stolen from his car. His Grey Cup champion game worn jersey. Yep.
I didn't know. I have to talk about that to him.
Yeah.
Anyway, class act, lovely man, like just
great
a great
dude, hell of a football player too.
Yep. Yeah. He had a score of 194.
What?
you look at this guy, he is absolutely huge. He told me he mostly works out with kettlebell these days, but like you can train grip strength. Holy crap.
Well, O-linemen need good grip strength, right? Because like there's holding on every play. You got to grab that guy under the chest plate, right? And push. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I love me some Chris Greaves. The other game ball for a receiver I'll give is to Nick Dembski. Four catches on 4 targets for 90 yards and a touchdown, including that long at 54, that over the shoulder Mickey Mantle catch, which was unbelievable. Could have been a burning point in that game, but they absolutely needed it. So I'm going to give him one just because he also gets to 1,000 yards for the second consecutive season, Darrin. The Canadian Army knife, as we like to call him. Yes. I also have to give a game ball to Lucky Whitehead. I mean, this return team for the Bombers has been the worst in the CFL, and it's not even really close. Up to this point, they'd had 2 big play returns, but Lucky breaks a 54-yarder to get Winnipeg back in the game. And he, I think if this was Lucky in 2019, I think he scores a touchdown on that one. But a guy caught up to him at the end. I don't know if he quite has the top end speed that he used to have, but I'll give him a ton of credit. I thought that was an absolutely massive play. I really do.
I don't even think it came down to speed. I want to show 2 things from this. Okay. Here's Lucky catching the ball. Sorry, I had to mute my mic there for a second while I clear my throat. The blocking by Winnipeg here. Okay. Really well done. And it's Lucky Whitehead's speed that gets him to beat these 3 guys you see right here, or these 4. Whoops. Oh, I screwed up. These 4 tacklers here, it's Lucky's speed that beats them because they're not blocked. And it is that job by the kicker to make Lucky cut is the reason he got caught. And he was just barely caught. But
yeah,
that change of direction, like watch the tackler in pursuit. He closes because Lucky had to go left-right or east-west instead of north-south.
But if Lucky had more speed, would it have mattered?
Yeah, I don't think so.
No?
No. Just like look at the close. But then
look
at that. Just bottom of the foot. And it forces Lucky to short step and then trip on his own feet. This is what I'm saying is Lucky could have all the speed in the world, but the angle, see how the angle changes? Watch the tackler. He's at the bottom left of your screen. Watch the tackler there. See? Because Lucky had to change direction, that's the reason he closed. He was going the same speed as him. So, just that change of direction made him had the ability to close the gap. So, yeah.
But
I think just giving Lucky a game ball is a great call.
Yeah, just in a unit that hadn't been producing, they produced at the most important time, right? And that's not just Lucky, right? Like Lucky hit that hole really well, but there was a hole, right? Like that's the blockers, right? And I think some of the injury issues the Bombers were having, I think that they played a role. You had role players like Michael Ayers come back who plays special teams, and Bailey Feltmate, the fullback who plays special teams. Like those injuries matter on a return game. You need to have a seam, and Lucky hit it. So good for him. I thought that was huge. I thought Tony Jones on defense played a hell of a game, Darrin.
Yeah.
9 total tackles, 1 tackle for a loss. I think he's feeling like Walter Fletcher is not an easy back to wrangle. So I thought he had a good game. I like what he's doing in the middle linebacking, where he's playing middle linebacker for Adam Bighill. I thought another game ball. I have 2 more, 1 more, actually 3. I got to give Collaros a game ball. 75%
Nice.
for 331 yards and a
Good for you.
touchdown, no picks. And he also had another scramble, Darrin, for a first down. Like, I'm not saying he's running the lights out of I'm not saying he's a dual threat quarterback, but Collaros can run when he has to, and it's a game changer.
So you're saying he does enough when he needs to?
Yeah, he does. Well, will he do that in the playoffs? Here's what this is my tinfoil hat crazy prediction. I think Collaros' ability to break the pocket and run for a first down is going to be a key play in the West Final or Grey Cup if the Bombers win either of those games.
Yeah.
I really do think it's something that teams just can't prepare for. And if you drop 9 in coverage, for example, and rush 3 and he breaks contain, he can get you a first down. Anyway, Zach Collaros gets a game ball. Tyrese Beverett for the other team has to get a game ball. This guy is an absolute animal. He really and just crazy. He had the sack, he had 5 tackles, but he's just all over the field. And my final game ball, Darrin, my pièce de résistance is the wind. The wind gets a game ball because that wind won us the game. As much as we want to talk about stats and players and talent and scheme and blah, 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 that wind, when Joseph Zima is about to punt that ball away to ice the game, that wind won us the game.
Yep.
It won us the game. It's just all there is to it. And that's crazy. And it's awesome. And I will take it. As a Bomber fan, Darrin, I will take it because it gives us that first round bye, that all-important home field advantage in the West Division final for the first time ever for these Bombers. 4th West Division final at home in a row. That's crazy. They need to cap it off with a Grey Cup win to get the dynasty, right? And that's what we all want. But this is huge. And it's all because of the win. Yep. Winnipeg. Come on down to Winnipeg. How about that wind?
How about that wind? How about that smoke? I love that.
How about
well
that
done.
Wind?
Well done.
That's going to be on a t-shirt, and I should get a royalty for it.
There you go. Yeah, okay. Maybe we could sell those along with the Bonfire Hat at 𝘎𝙤𝙤𝙧𝙚. Right?
Yeah.
If you want a Bonfire Hat, if you like what you're seeing, BonfireSports.ca/hat. There it is right there. I'll put it right in the middle of the screen. BonfireSports.ca/hat links to that, as well as the book by Douglas Savage, My New Hero, in the video description below. Did you know Bonfire Sports will be at the Grey Cup? No matter what, we're headed there. So we got tons of stuff coming the rest of the way, including everything you need to be ready for the West Final on November 9th. Everything you need after the West Final, live here on Game Day After Dark. Schnitzy, you and I will be back as always. Chris Walby joins me for Game Day Winnipeg the day before the game, so we'll do that on Friday this coming week. Before I forget, I'll give a game ball, just one, and I'm going to do it like a coach, okay? If I was Mike O'Shea, if I was a coach, I would want to give my game ball to somebody that would be an inspiration to everybody on the team. So I'm giving it to the guy that persevered, the guy that, despite failure, went out and succeeded the next time around. Sergio Castillo gets the game ball tonight. And I think so often people will say, they lost the game because of this guy, or they won the game because of this guy. So much more goes into a game than the final play. And that is always the case. But in this case, what Sergio Castillo did was persevere and re-elevate himself after failure. And I think the message by giving him a game ball, if I was the head coach, is that no matter who you are on this team, no matter what your role is on this team, that if you make a mistake, you keep your head up, you go back out there, and you get the job done. Another opportunity will come to be. And for the Blue Bombers, maybe it took a gust of wind. Maybe it took the football gods shining down on them. But they got that opportunity, and they were ready to capitalize on it. Sergio and the 11 other guys on the field for that game-winning kick you are seeing on your screen right now. The Bombers win 28-27 to capture the West Division. And it's amazing that after an 0-4 start, this team is 11-7 and will have a bye in the first round of the playoffs.
Crazy.
Incredible.
It's crazy, dude. Crazy. 0-4, 2-6, 11-7. Hosting the West Final again on the back of a mighty win, my friend. And it was a mighty win.
A mighty win and a mighty wind. Great Canadian produced movie, by the way. A mighty wind. Schnitzy, as we always do, leave it to you for final thought. Thanks to everybody in the live chat as we head out.
This game turned on a mighty wind, and up until that point, I was much chagrined. Sayonara, everybody.